Olivia blinked at me, confused. "You're okay with all this?" "Why wouldn't I be?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "It's just stuff, Olivia. You can have it." For a split second, I saw the doubt creep into her expression, but she quickly covered it with a smug smile. She thought she'd won, that she was walking away with everything that mattered. What she didn't know was that the house wasn't mine to begin with. It was a rental under my name, something I'd used as a workspace when I first started freelancing years ago. And the savings she thought she was taking a piece of? That was just a fraction of my wealth. The real money was tucked away in investments, accounts she didn't even know existed. As the papers were signed and the process finalized, Olivia leaned back in her chair, satisfied. "Well, I'm glad we could handle this like adults," she said with a patronizing tone. I just nodded, biting back the urge to laugh. A week later, I packed up my belongings and left the house she so desperately wanted. I left her everything she asked for: furniture, decorations, even the expensive kitchen gadgets she'd never actually used. It wasn't worth the trouble to take any of it. Let her have her spoils. Brian, of course, wasted no time moving in. A neighbor texted me a photo of him unloading boxes into the house, Olivia standing on the porch with that same smug smile plastered across her face. They probably thought they were building their perfect little life together, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beyond their view. What Olivia didn't know was that I'd already started gathering evidence of her affair with Brian months before the divorce. Photos, text messages, even a global positioning system history showing their frequent lunches at a nearby hotel. And while I could have used it to blow up the divorce proceedings, I decided against it. Why? Because dragging this out in court would only prolong the drama, and I wanted something far more satisfying. I wanted karma to take its course, and I wanted front row seats when it did. In the weeks that followed, I settled into my new life. My career continued to thrive, and my income grew even further as new opportunities rolled in. Meanwhile, Olivia and Brian were busy parading their relationship around town, convinced they were the picture of happiness. I didn't react. I didn't call. I didn't text. My silence was deafening, and I knew it would eat away at them eventually. One day, I received a message from a mutual friend. "Marcus, did you know Olivia's throwing a housewarming party? She and Brian are really leaning into this whole thing." I just chuckled to myself. Of course they were. Olivia was the type who needed validation from others, who thrived on the illusion of success. She didn't realize that her shiny new life was built on a foundation of lies, and that foundation was already starting to crack. As I sat in my new apartment that evening, looking out over the city skyline, I couldn't help but feel a sense of peace. Olivia thought she'd won, but she had no idea what she'd really lost. And Brian? Well, he was about to learn that taking something that wasn't his came with a price. I wasn't rushing. Revenge, after all, is a dish best served cold, and I was just getting started. I'm not sure what Olivia expected when she and Brian decided to make their affair official. Maybe she envisioned a picture-perfect life, complete with weekend brunches, romantic vacations, and the glow of a new relationship. If so, she was in for a rude awakening. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. I stayed quiet, of course. There was no need to intervene. They were digging their own graves just fine without my help. The first sign of trouble came through whispers from mutual acquaintances. A friend of mine mentioned that Olivia and Brian were already struggling to maintain their new dream life. "She's hosting all these dinner parties, trying to show off," my friend said. "But I hear Brian's been overspending and they're behind on the bills." I wasn't surprised. Brian had always been the kind of guy who wanted the lifestyle without the work. He liked expensive suits, flashy cars, and fine dining, but he didn't have the discipline or the income to sustain it. Olivia apparently hadn't realized she traded financial stability for a man who was all show and no substance. Then there was the gossip about their arguments. They weren't the couple everyone thought they were. People talked about the shouting matches that could be heard through the walls of their rented house. Yes, rented. The house Olivia had been so smug about taking in the divorce was gone. She'd been forced to sell it after realizing she couldn't afford the upkeep. One day I got a call from an old neighbor. "Marcus, you won't believe this," she said, barely able to contain her laughter. "Olivia and Brian had the landlord banging on their door this morning. They're behind on rent." I leaned back in my chair, a smile creeping onto my face. "Oh, how far behind?" 3 months, she said. "They're trying to act like it's no big deal, but you can tell they're struggling." It was poetic, really. The life they'd so proudly built on betrayal was crumbling under the weight of their own arrogance. Meanwhile, I focused on my own life. My income had grown exponentially since the divorce, and I was busier than ever with new projects and opportunities. I poured myself into my work, building something real and lasting, while Olivia and Brian stumbled through their hollow relationship. Then, out of the blue, Olivia reached out. She sent me a text one evening, pretending to be friendly. "Hi Marcus, I hope you're doing well. Just wanted to check in and see how things are going for you." I stared at the message for a moment, debating whether to respond. I could feel the underlying desperation in her words. She wasn't checking in, she was fishing. Still, I decided to play along. "Things are great, Olivia," I replied. "Business is booming. How about you?" Her response came quickly. "Oh, Brian and I are doing well. Things are a bit tight financially, but we're managing." I almost laughed. Managing? That was putting it generously. The real kicker came a week later. I was leaving a client meeting when I spotted Olivia waiting outside the building. She looked different, tired, stressed, and not nearly as put together as she used to be. "Marcus," she called, her voice tinged with something I hadn't heard from her in years, uncertainty. I approached her, keeping my expression neutral. "Olivia, what brings you here?" She hesitated, fiddling with the strap of her purse. I wanted to talk. Things have been tough lately, and I thought maybe we could catch up. Catch up? I knew exactly what she wanted, but I wasn't about to make it easy for her. "I'm a little busy," I said, "but I hope things improve for you." She forced a smile, but I could see the cracks beneath it. As I walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. This was karma at its finest. Olivia and Brian had thought they were trading up, but they didn't realize the price of their choices. Now they were stuck in a life they couldn't afford, struggling to keep up appearances while the walls closed in around them. The best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. They had done this to themselves, and I was content to watch from a distance as they reaped what they had sown. Their perfect little world was falling apart, and I hadn't even started my revenge yet. The thing about revenge is that it doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes the sweetest victories are the ones where you don't have to say a word. You just let the truth do the talking, and the results speak for themselves. That's exactly what I did. As I watched Olivia and Brian's carefully constructed fantasy life start to crumble, while they were busy trying to keep up appearances, I was thriving. My work had taken off in ways I hadn't even anticipated. Deals were closing left and right, and my annual income had climbed to over $533,000. I wasn't just doing well, I was flourishing. But I kept it quiet. There was no need to flaunt my success. Olivia had already dismissed me as the man who didn't work, and I was more than happy to let her hold on to that misconception. Why correct her when her ignorance worked so perfectly in my favor? Instead of focusing on them, I turned all my attention inward. I upgraded my apartment to a sleek, modern space in the heart of the city, a place that reflected my new life, floor-to-ceiling windows, smart technology, and a view of the skyline that was nothing short of breathtaking. It was a home built on my own hard work, free of the bitterness and betrayal that had tainted the last one. My days were filled with meetings, projects, and opportunities that kept me sharp and engaged. My nights? Those were for me. I started going out more, reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. Life felt lighter, freer, and full of potential. Of course, Olivia wasn't completely absent. Every now and then, I'd get a text or hear through mutual acquaintances about her and Brian's latest struggles, the unpaid bills, the arguments, the mounting debt.